our 19mm socket, let's go ahead and remove our lug nuts. Let's go ahead and remove our wheel and set that aside. Using our 14mm socket and ratchet, we're going to go ahead and remove our brake caliper bolts. We did go ahead and spray them down with some rust penetrant. And remove those bolts and set them aside. Using a small pry bar, go ahead and pull your brake caliper off. Once that's free, you can go ahead and set that aside. I want to make sure that that doesn't fall, so I'm just going to set that up and support that on my sway bar right here. Go ahead and remove your brake pads. Using your 14mm socket, go ahead and remove your caliper bracket bolts. There's 2 of these. Once that bolt comes out, you can go ahead and remove your caliper bracket. Go ahead and set that aside. Now our particular vehicle has 2 screws right here. They are holding the brake rotor to the hub itself. We try to remove them by using a screwdriver, but they're a little bit rusted, so we're going to use an impact driver tool to loosen these screws. Once they're broken free, go ahead and spin those out. Now, if your vehicle does not have these, it is not critical to the performance or operation of the vehicle. They're simply placed there from the factory to support the brake rotor during assembly on the assembly line. So at this point here, we want to go ahead and remove our brake rotor, but we do have some drag on our rotor. Our emergency brake shoes are grabbing on the inside of our brake rotor hat. We're going to use a small pick here. Go ahead and remove this rubber boot right here. And we're going to rotate this to find our adjuster. We're going to try and release the tension on the e-brake shoes and then remove the brake rotor. We're going to thread on a couple lug nuts here. Then we're going to grab a pry bar. What we're going to do is use this to rotate the brake rotor. We're going to look through the sight window here and rotate this until we can find our adjuster. And it looks like it's on the bottom here. Just want to position this so that we can go ahead and release that tension off those brake pads there. Now looking through the sight window right here, right in the very center, there is a gear or a wheel that'll rotate forward or back. There's a spring to the right of it, spring to the left of it. So you're going to go through with a screwdriver. We're going to find that little sprocket. We're going to rotate it upward until we can try and get this loose. If it doesn't want to move, we're going to try rotating it the other way. It is stuck a little bit, could be rusted. Now we're rotating, we're hitting the tabs on the bottom of the gear. We're rotating it towards you. We're already starting to get some slack in there, which is good. And do this a little bit more. We're going to go ahead and remove our lug nuts. Now what we're going to do is we're going to install a couple bolts right here. These thread into the brake rotor, not where the set screws were, but there are other two threaded holes. These bolts will go in, they're going to go through the rotor, and as the bolts go through the rotor, they're going to press up against the hub face on the back side and pull the rotor out towards us. I'm going to do this evenly. Does seem like we still have some resistance. We're going to try tapping on the rotor itself. We still have some e-brake resistance, so we're going to loosen these here, take those right out. We need to go back through this sight hole here and release the e-brake shoes a little bit further. I'll go ahead and remove the rotor. Now in the center of your wheel hub, there's going to be a cap. This cap comes off. We're going to use a small pry bar. Has a little edge on it. I'm going to go ahead and get behind here. I'm going to rotate this and work our way around. Go ahead and work that cap off evenly. Now that we have our cap off, go ahead and set that aside. Now our spindle nut right here has a little dimple. It's recessed into the hub shaft itself. We want to use a punch. I want to go ahead and open that up. Use a 32mm socket to go ahead and remove the axle nut. Go ahead and grab your hub, work that off. Now we were reaching through the small window in the brake rotor. We're going for this gear right here behind this spring, and we were rotating this towards us. This was causing the shoes to compress inward, so you can see what we were actually operating through that window in the rotor. Inspect the spindle shaft, make sure there's no scores or any marks, damage, or anything like that. Apply a thin coat of grease. Go ahead and take your new hub, line it up, slide that on. Install the axle nut. We'll go ahead and snug that down. Let's go ahead and torque the axle nut or spindle nut down to 134 foot-pounds. Going to use a wide chisel tip to go ahead and dimple the nut. You can install your brake rotor. Let's go ahead and install our screws to hold the brake rotor to the hub. If you have these, great. If not, once again, it's not critical to the operation and not necessary. Good, snug these down. Finish tightening up the screws there. Just want to make sure that we don't have any resistance on this here and our rotor is spinning nice and free. Go ahead and install the rubber plug on your sight window here. Let's go ahead and install our dust cap. I'm just going to work our way around the perimeter. I'm going to use a small punch here. Continue working that in. I'm going to go ahead and install our caliper bracket. Get the bolts on from the back side. Once we get those bolts started, let's go ahead and snug those down. Install your inboard brake pad. Install your outboard pad. Take your brake caliper, line this up. And get our lower bolt installed. And get our upper bolt installed. Let's go ahead and snug those down. Go ahead and torque our caliper slide pin bolts to 17 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and torque down our caliper bracket bolts to 41 foot-pounds. Go ahead and install your wheel. I'm going to get our lug nuts all started. Once we get the lug nuts all started by hand, we're going to go ahead and snug them down. Go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Once we're all set, go ahead and hop in the vehicle, pump up the brakes, and you're all set to go.